David the Cobalt Fairy. One beautiful day in the fairy world, two lovers, Kelvin, a stunning lavender fairy with long blonde hair and a lavender crown, dressed in a daringly short lavender dress that shimmered with every beat of her wings, and David, a breathtakingly sexy cobalt fairy with long brown hair dressed in a cobalt blue glittery mini dress that clung to her perfect figure, were flying over a beautiful meadow into the enchanting fairy city. As Kelvin and David landed in the city with their pretty wings, they decided to look around the fairy market and shops. Their stunning beauty and alluring outfits turned many heads as they browsed the sparkling stalls. They were greeted by all kinds of other fairies, all humbled by Kelvin and David's presence, and wanting to see David, the only fairy of technology to exist. Kelvin and David said their goodbyes and headed off to the fairy's palace. They were stopped by two beautiful golden fairies with their wands raised, who said, "Who are you? What do you want?" Kelvin approached and said, "I am Kelvin, the Lavender Fairy Queen, here to see Queen Alara." The two fairy guards replied, "Oh, Kelvin and David, apologies. Security has been stepped up since the Black Fairy arrived. You may pass." In the fairy palace throne room sat the beautiful fairy queen Alara, with her long white hair, a beautiful crown, and dressed in a gorgeous white dress. David, her form the epitome of grace and allure, gave an elegant curtsy before the two queens. Kelvin asked Alara to buy the ruins of an old, beautiful fairy castle on the edge of the kingdom. Alara said, "Oh, that castle, you may have it for free. However, the dark fairy, Umbra, may not like it as it was hers many years ago, and she is back." Kelvin explained how they saved a yellow fairy from them and attacked. Queen Alara looked stunned and said, "They entered my territory? We must stop this. David, you are the Lord Fairy Protector, help us." David replied, "Of course, Your Majesty, at once." Suddenly, David started to twirl on the spot, withdrew her wand, and poof! David the Cobalt Fairy's outfit transformed from her glittery mini dress into a form-fitting cobalt steel battle dress that was both beautiful and deadly. Her beautiful fairy wings became blue steel, sharp and spiky, and thigh-high metal boots materialized on her legs. Then she flew off out of the palace window. David, with her new wings, hit supersonic speed and arrived in the dark fairy world. The sky was a bruised purple, and the land was twisted and barren. Suddenly, David was hit mid-air by a black bolt of lightning, sending her spiraling towards the ground. David tumbled and hit the dark floor hard, but, still in her armored battle dress, was unharmed. She instantly rose to her feet and saw an army of dark fairies heading towards her, their eyes glowing with malevolent red light. David withdrew her cobalt fairy wand and, with a flick of her wrist, it reconfigured. She summoned many Type 63 multiple rocket launchers made from cobalt energy, which instantly launched a barrage of cobalt missiles at the dark fairy army. The missiles exploded in waves of cobalt energy as the dark fairies scattered. But they were relentless, continuing their assault upon David, firing streams of dark magic that sizzled through the air towards her. "My turn," David whispered. She then summoned to her hand a Gatling gun made from cobalt energy, which began to spin with a high-tech hum before unleashing a torrent of energy bullets, decimating the Black Fairy army, which then retreated towards a dark castle on the horizon. David flew into the air in pursuit, the barrels of her Gatling gun still smoking with residual energy. "Is that all you've got?" she shouted into the wind. "Come on then." She arrived at the colossal gates of the dark castle, which pulsed with an impenetrable barrier of black magic. David landed softly before them, her eyes scanning the arcane energy. "Primitive but powerful," she noted, raising her wand. Let's try a more modern approach. Her wand morphed, the tip extending and beginning to rotate at an impossible speed, glowing white-hot. She pressed the high-frequency energy drill against the gate, and with a piercing scream of magic and metal, it began to dissolve. The gate crumbled. As David stepped into the courtyard, 2 elite dark guards, twice the size of the others and clad in obsidian armor, dropped from the battlements to block her path, their shadow-forged swords drawn. The guards attacked in a blur of motion. David was faster. She deployed a network of hexagonal cobalt energy shields, which materialized around her to block their ferocious blows. Sparks of dark and blue energy flew with every impact. Predictable attack patterns, David analyzed. Her shields dropped, and in their place she summoned 2 glowing cobalt energy katanas. She ducked under a wild swing and moved in, her blades a blur of blue light as she engaged the guards in close-quarters combat. With a final, graceful movement, David disarmed and disabled both guards. They collapsed, their obsidian armor clattering on the flagstones. She dismissed her katanas and walked purposefully towards the entrance to the castle's main keep. The throne room was vast and cold. On a throne, carved from shadow and nightmare, sat the Dark Queen, Umbra. She was terrifyingly beautiful, with hair like spun midnight and a dress of living darkness. "So," she said, her voice like silk and venom, "the little tech toy has come to my home." "This castle was stolen from my family by Alara's ancestors," Umbra hissed, rising from her throne. "You, with your crude trinkets and soulless machines, cannot possibly understand. You are a perversion of what it means to be a fairy." The final battle began. Umbra unleashed a storm of pure dark magic, a tempest of shadows and despair that threatened to tear David apart. David responded instantly, erecting a wide area force field. The dome shimmered, but cracks of darkness began to spiderweb across its surface. "Time for an upgrade," David grunted, pushing all her power to her core. She allowed the shield to collapse as she rerouted the energy. Her entire armored form began to glow, and her wand transformed into a massive cobalt energy cannon, which she leveled at the Queen. Umbra laughed, a chilling sound that echoed in the vast hall. She gathered all her power, the living shadows of the room coalescing into a single terrifying sphere of annihilating darkness between her hands. "Let's see your toy save you from this," she shrieked. David fired. A colossal beam of pure cobalt energy erupted from her cannon, meeting Umbra's sphere of darkness in the center of the room. For a moment there was silence, and then a cataclysmic explosion of blue and black energy shattered the throne room and blew the roof from the castle. In the aftermath, amidst the ruins, David stood victorious. The dark sky above began to lighten, the malevolent purple giving way to the first signs of a new dawn.